Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to the sprawling majesty of Tang Dynasty China. The year is 734 CE. The sky over the capital, Chang'an, is still a sleepy blue-gray as you trudge into the outer market district. Your donkey snorts behind you, already regretting everything about today. Your mail satchel is heavy with bamboo slips, silk scrolls, and at least one letter that smells suspiciously like dried fish. You haven't read it. Of course, you're not that brave, but it's clearly addressed to some tax official in the southern provinces who has no sense of scent-based boundaries. You're one of thousands of courier riders who keep the empire's arteries pumping, shuffling messages from one outpost to the next across a kingdom so vast it takes months to cross. Your uniform itches, your boots are too tight, and your job pays less than the palace noodle cook. But hey, it's steady work. And you're technically allowed to yell at civilians who block the post road. That's something. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there, since you might be listening at 2:37 a.m. Under a weighted blanket or standing in your kitchen with a lukewarm chamomile. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your donkey, let's call him Moo Moo, because why not, has developed a very specific rhythm to his steps. Right, left, pause, reluctant snort. Then right, left again. You've grown so accustomed to his awkward tempo that walking beside another animal feels alien. The main road into Chang'an is packed this morning. Ox carts full of grain. Scholars muttering to themselves while chewing pickled radish. In a nobleman's procession that smells aggressively of sandalwood. You maneuver past them, your bronze courier badge jangling on your sash like a very unimpressive medal. Chang'an is enormous. At its peak, nearly 1 million people live here. It's a grid of markets, temples, bureaucratic offices, and gossiping Andes leaning over balconies. The postal office is tucked near the northern wall, an unassuming structure of timber and clay, with a roof that hasn't been fixed in a decade, and a sleepy clerk who once mistook you for someone delivering tofu. You head in anyway. The postmaster, a man whose beard has achieved sentience, waves you in without looking up. You unload the satchel, bow as expected, and wait for your next assignment. Today, you're headed to the western provinces. Not glamorous, not scenic, definitely not odor-free. But the emperor's new edict must be delivered to 6 different prefectures, and you, along with Moo Moo, are the lucky pair selected. Your route will follow ancient trade paths once used by merchants, nomads, and the occasional runaway monk. It'll be muddy, windy, and probably involve bandits with more enthusiasm than teeth. Historians still argue whether Tang postal workers were true government officials or glorified delivery boys. You decide not to weigh in, mostly because you're busy checking the donkey's hooves for pebbles and debating whether it's worth asking for a slightly less haunted saddle. The gear is loaded, the scrolls sealed with sticky red wax. Some are meant for provincial governors. Others, bafflingly, are addressed to river inspectors, who presumably sit by rivers inspecting them. One scroll is marked, eyes only, top priority, which sound important until you remember that last time that label was attached to a shipment of pickled plums and a love poem. You exit the city through the western gate, past a trio of guards arguing over whether the moon last night looked more like a goose or a turnip. The road stretches out like a lazy ribbon across the landscape, flanked by wheat fields and the occasional watchtower. The morning fog is lifting, revealing distant hills where the road dips and coils like a forgotten ribbon tossed by a tipsy bureaucrat. Moo Moo trudges. You trudge. Together, you are a slow, grumpy force of government communication. A few miles out, you pass a relay station, a government-run post house where messages are transferred, animals swapped. And couriers like you get exactly 3 dumplings and 1 dirty blanket. These stations are vital. Without them, the entire system collapses. They're the imperial equivalent of roadside diners. If diners also track your movements with jade tokens and occasionally accuse you of theft, you wave to the station manager. He waves back, distracted by a goose that has taken over his rice barrel. You decide not to get involved. As you move farther west, the villages grow smaller. The fields become more erratic, some flooded, others dry and cracked. Children shout, "Messenger! Messenger!" as you pass, hoping you'll drop a letter or, better yet, candy. You do not carry candy. You do, however, carry a small pouch of dried lotus seeds, which you munch on with resigned apathy. One scroll threatens to come loose, and you pause to retie the leather strap holding it in place. The wax seal bears the mark of the Ministry of Rites, usually something ceremonial, like a temple donation list or a strongly worded reminder that fireworks are not for funerals. Around midday, you stop under a tree. Moo flops down dramatically. You pour him a ladle of water from the bamboo jug, and he slurps it like a disgruntled monk. Your lunch is 2 steam buns, one of which has mysteriously gone missing. You blame the donkey. He blinks at you, unimpressed. The silence is absolute, save for the rustling of reeds and the occasional shriek of a crane overhead. You begin to doze, just for a second, until the wind picks up and reminds you that you still have 12 miles to go before the next relay stop. Donkey scrolls, sunburn, repeat. The road bends westward and narrows, flanked by shrubs that look like they gave up on growing halfway through the last dynasty. Moo snorts at a suspicious-looking rock, which you're 70% sure is not alive. You let him lead. He knows this stretch better than you do, having walked it more times than he's had clean hooves. Somewhere between the mountain air and the dried turnip you forgot you packed, your lunch begins arguing with your stomach. Up ahead, a flicker of color. Another courier, perched on a gray mule, his robe flapping like he's pretending to be important. You recognize him, Jean, a fellow messenger whose primary talents include snacking mid-gallop and recounting exaggerated tales of near-death by paper cut. He waves a bamboo scroll at you like it's a fan. You're headed to Human Pass, he calls, steering his mule in a sync with Moo's reluctant trot. You nod. He grimaces. Good luck. Bandits robbed a salt merchant there last week. All they took were his shoes and a jar of pickles. Either they're extremely confused or very underpaid. You ride together for a while, exchanging complaints about itchy uniforms, stingy clerks, and why the Ministry of Works insists on sealing their letters with wax that smells like roasted onions. Mumutrais to bite yinis mule. You pretend not to notice. The next relay station appears just as your legs begin to fuse with the saddle. It's a squat, square compound with faded red tiles and a crooked wooden sign that reads Post House 47. Inside, a boy no older than 12 is chasing a chicken with a broom. You dismount, hand off the scroll bundle for recording, and slump against a pillar like a noodle in crisis. Here's how the Tang postal system works. In theory, couriers like you shuttle mail between designated relay stations every 30 to 40 li, about 10 miles. At each post house, you swap out your donkey for a fresh one, hand off any messages destined farther west, and pick up whatever urgent nonsense awaits in return. It's an endless, synchronized relay designed to move Imperial commands, taxes, census data, and sometimes poetry at speeds faster than most mortals travel for dumplings. The actual operation? A bit messy, eh? Historians still argue whether the relay system was standardized under Taizong or perfected later. Jean mutters as he dunks a crust of millet bread into bitter tea. Personally, I think they just made it up as they went. You sip your tea, which tastes faintly of boiled socks. He's not wrong. While the system looks great on a silk scroll diagram, it relies heavily on station managers not being drunk, donkeys not collapsing, and messengers not accidentally delivering a tax notice to a tofu vendor. A fringe record from a Buddhist monk claims that some post houses kept monkeys to warn of incoming travelers. Jean believes it. You're not sure. You once saw a monkey steal a lacquer box and hold it hostage until someone bribed it with dried fish. The whole idea seems risky. After a quick nap, 5 minutes somehow becomes 40. You're nudged awake by the station boy, who hands you a fresh satchel and a dried yam. Your new donkey is slightly less judgmental than Moo, but twice as flatulent. You don't ask his name. You set off again. Jean splitting off at the next fork in the road with a dramatic goodbye and a warning about fox spirits that impersonate couriers to steal lunch. You wave, trying to decide if that counts as a fringe historical fact or just Jean being Jean. The terrain begins to rise. Scrubland gives way to rocky slopes, the path snaking up hills that seem personally offended by your existence. The donkey wheezes. You wheeze. A hawk circles above, probably judging you both. Evening begins to settle like damp cloth. The wind picks up, whispering through the tall grass. You wrap your scarf tighter, not just for warmth, but because the scrolls are sacred. Well, officially. At least one contains a census list of turnip growers, but still, symbolically sacred. You pass a stone marker engraved with the Tang dragon emblem. It's chipped, weathered, and half buried under moss, but still imposing in its quiet way. A reminder, you serve the Empire, whether it notices or not. In the distance, smoke curls from a small village nestled between hills. You consider stopping, but the next post house is only 3 li farther. That's manageable, probably, assuming you don't collapse like a week-old dumpling. As twilight deepens, your thoughts wander. You remember an older courier from Chang'an, Toothless Tao, who used to claim he once delivered a love poem directly to the Empress. Nobody believed him. The Empress famously hated poetry, but still, you imagine what that might have been like. Silk robes, a throne room lit with candlelight. Your donkey inexplicably allowed inside. You chuckle. The donkey farts. The mood passes. Another mile, and the post house comes into view. Post House 48, marked by 2 leaning lantern poles and a gate that's seen better centuries. Inside, an old woman eyes you from behind a counter stacked with half-burnt incense and a suspicious number of combs. She inspects your badge, grunts, and points to a stall. There's already someone there, an envoy from the southern province, judging by the patterned sash and very clean boots. He's frowning in map, lips pursed like he just bit into a lemon made of bureaucracy. You nod politely and unload your scrolls, while waiting for a receipt slip, because yes, even in the Tang Dynasty, paperwork follows you like an over-friendly goose. You notice a wall chart listing delivery times from previous months, fresh animals, and no tea breaks. You once took 21, but to be fair, there was a landslide, a flooded rice paddy, and a chicken ride in Jincheng. You find a corner, roll out your mat, and settle in. The floor creaks like it's trying to remember being a tree. Outside, the wind rustles. Inside, the envoy mutters about Imperial delay and someone's inauthentic seal. You drift off anyway. Tomorrow, more scrolls, more roads, more arguments with hooved co-workers. But for now, sleep. The morning light filters softly through the thin paper windows, casting a pale glow over the humble post house. You stretch your limbs, careful not to disturb the envoy, who is now asleep with his head resting on a pile of crumpled maps. The old woman bustles quietly, brewing a pot of bitter tea that smells faintly of pine needles and something you hope is not burnt. Your new donkey waits outside, a calm beast with eyes half closed, as if resigned to another day of dusty roads and errant flies. You mount up and survey the horizon, rolling hills, distant clusters of wind-worn pines, and a sky so clear it feels like a pale blue silk scarf draped over the earth. Today, the route takes you into the sprawling, rugged lands of the Hushi Corridor, an ancient artery connecting the heart of the Tang Empire with Central Asia. You've heard stories about this stretch, caravans laden with silk and spices, echoes of foreign tongues, and once, a particularly stubborn camel that refused to budge until fed a handful of fermented apricots. The relay system here is vital. Without it, Imperial commands would crawl at the speed of a leisurely ox cart, and the Empire would fray at the edges. Your job is a thread in that vast tapestry, a whispered message carrying the heartbeat of distant provinces. The path dips suddenly, revealing a narrow stone bridge arching over a swift mountain stream. The water rushes cold and clear, gurgling secrets that sound almost like laughter. You steady your donkey and cross carefully, mindful of slick stones and the chance of sudden gust. Historians still argue whether the Hushi corridor's postal stations were originally military outposts repurposed for mail or deliberately built to facilitate trade and communication. Either way, you can feel the lingering spirit of watchful soldiers in the thick stone walls and shuttered windows along the way. A peculiar custom you've heard about involves the courier's oath, a vow sworn to protect the scrolls even at the cost of one's own life. Some say this was more a legend to inspire loyalty. Others insist it was inscribed in sacred calligraphy, displayed proudly at key stations. Either way, you take the metaphor to heart as the sun climbs higher and your donkey's steady plod sets a hypnotic rhythm. Along the route, you notice a small flock of blue sheep grazing on a rocky ledge. They're native to these highlands. They're prized by nomads for warmth and softness. The sight feels oddly calming, a moment of nature's quiet amid your relentless march. You pause briefly to drink from a flask, savoring the warm bitterness. Your fingers brush a folded paper tied to your satchel, a map, drawn by a cartographer with an impressive fondness for dragons and clouds. It's more art than utility, but comforting nonetheless. Curiously, local folklore whispers of a ghost courier who rides these roads on moonless nights, delivering messages no one dares to read. Some say he's a restless spirit punished for breaking the courier's oath. Others think he's a figment born from too many sleepless watches under starry skies. You shiver, though the sun feels generous. Probably just the wind or that third cup of pine tea catching up with you. Midday arrives in a swirl of dry heat and shimmering horizons. You reach a small oasis where water pools beneath willow trees, a welcome respite for both you and your donkey. Here, the post house doubles as a caravanserai, where traders from the West exchange goods and stories over steaming bowls of noodles and fragrant tea. You hear a merchant from Samarkand boasting about a new invention, a musical instrument that sounds like a bird and a drum combined. The locals listen politely, but seem more interested in the dried fruit skewers offered by a smiling woman selling pomegranates and figs. This mingling of cultures is the lifeblood of the corridor, a reminder that the empire's reach stretches beyond its borders, knitting together distant peoples with silk threads and shared tales. As afternoon settles, the trail narrows again, winding through stony passes guarded by crumbling watchtowers. The wind whispers secrets in a language almost forgotten. Your donkey snorts, as if agreeing that some places are better left to memory. You pass a worn milestone marking the distance to Dunhuang, one of the empire's jewels, famed for its caves filled with sacred murals. The thought brings a flicker of excitement. One day, maybe, you'll rest there long enough to see those paintings yourself. For now, the scrolls must move, the empire's voice carried faithfully across the miles. The sun dips low, and you prepare for the evening's arrival at the next station. The rhythmic cadence of your journey, the soft rustling of parchment, and the occasional sigh of your donkey blend into a gentle lullaby. And though the road is long, and your company often just the whispering wind, you find comfort in the steady beat of the Tang postal system's pulse, an ancient rhythm that has echoed through time, binding distant lands with messages written in ink, carried by hooves, and sealed with the quiet diligence of those who refuse to let words slip away. Dusk settles like a soft blanket as you approach the next post house, its wooden beams glowing warmly in the fading light. The air carries a faint aroma of roasting chestnuts and simmering broth, comforting reminders that even the busiest couriers have moments to pause and refresh. You guide your donkey carefully through the uneven courtyard, with a familiar clatter of pots and low chatter greets you. Inside, you find the station master, a stout man with a carefully groomed beard and eyes that twinkle with a mix of pride and fatigue. He nods approvingly at your timely arrival. Punctuality is everything in this line of work. A single delayed message can ripple through the empire like a stone dropped into a still pond. As you settle onto a rough wooden bench, the station master begins sharing stories, tales woven from years of overseeing these relay points. You listen closely, the warmth from the hearth spreading slowly through your tired limbs. One tale stands out. How, centuries ago, a courier was said to have outpaced a pursuing band of bandits by cleverly tying a bundle of brush to his donkey's tail, confusing his pursuers who chased the false trail into a thorny thicket. It's a story you've heard before, yet the humor never fades. The image of desperate bandits tangled in brambles is oddly soothing. Historians still argue whether these anecdotes served more as practical warnings or entertaining bedtime stories for couriers awaiting their next dispatch. Either way, you find yourself chuckling softly. The station master offers you a bowl of millet porridge sweetened with honey. The texture is soft and comforting, like a gentle hug after a long day. As you eat, you notice a faded scroll hanging on the wall, detailing the complex relay system that keeps the Empire connected. A network of stations spaced precisely to allow fresh horses and riders to swap without delay. You're reminded of an unusual practice. Some stations maintain secret signal fires that could be lit atop hills to relay urgent messages across vast distances. This early form of optical telegraphy might seem rudimentary now, but in its time, it was a marvel of coordination and speed. Outside, a group of donkeys rest in the stable, their tired eyes reflecting the soft glow of lanterns. You gently pat your own donkey's neck, grateful for its steadfast endurance. These animals are more than mere beasts of burden. They're trusted partners in the grand enterprise of communication. As night deepens, you lay out the next scroll to prepare for the morning's dispatch. Its contents detail grain shipments bound for the capital, a reminder that the postal system was not just about letters, but lifelines, food, orders, and news. The quiet settles around you like a gentle tide. Somewhere beyond the walls, the wind rustles through bamboo groves, carrying whispers of ancient poets and distant mountains. You close your eyes briefly, savoring the stillness, knowing tomorrow will bring another day on the road. And though the work is often solitary and the miles many, you carry with you the subtle pride of being part of something larger, a vast, humming network, where each letter, each step, each breath is a stitch in the Empire's fabric. Sleep tugs gently at your eyelids as the fire's glow flickers and fades, promising rest before the journey resumes with the dawn. The pale light of dawn filters softly through paper windows as you rise from your humble futon, the chill of morning brushing against your skin. Outside, the stable hums quietly with the low murmurs of donkeys beginning their day. Your own donkey, loyal and steady, nudges your hand, eager to move again. You pack the scrolls carefully, checking each one twice. Letters, official orders, tax receipts, all waiting to travel further into the vast Tang Empire. You set off just as the sun begins its slow climb, painting the sky with gentle pinks and golds. The road ahead is a ribbon of packed earth, flanked by fields of rice shimmering with dew. The soft clop of hooves blends with birdsong, a natural lullaby accompanying your ride. The postal routes, or each one as they are called, were more than just paths. They were arteries of an empire at its height. Historians still argue whether the remarkable efficiency of the Tang postal system owed more to its strict regulations or the dedicated couriers who braved all weather and terrain. One curious tradition of these couriers was their reliance on letter pouches crafted from durable woven silk, light enough to carry, but strong enough to protect fragile documents from rain or dust. Some of these pouches were even treated with a thin layer of lacquer, making them water-resistant, a small but clever innovation that kept messages safe on treacherous mountain passes. As you ride through a quiet village, a group of children run alongside your donkey, laughing and waving. You smile, remembering how even the smallest faces on the road were part of this grand story. Each message you carried might one day touch their lives in ways unseen. On the road, you pass a peculiar sight, a small shrine dedicated to the god of travel and communication, with offerings of rice wine and incense sticks. Couriers often paused here, seeking blessings for safe passage and swift journeys. It's a quaint ritual, blending faith with the practical needs of a messenger's life. Your mind wanders to the physical demands of this role. Donkeys, while not as swift as horses, were prized for their sure-footedness and endurance. You recall reading that some stations even trained donkeys to recognize certain sounds, a distant gong or whistle, that signaled when it was time to move. The bonds between rider and animal were quietly profound, a partnership built on trust and routine. Around midday, you reach a small tavern by the roadside, its sign faded but welcoming. You pause for a simple meal of steamed buns and tea, savoring the quiet comfort of this brief respite. A fellow courier shares a story about a bizarre incident where a donkey famously refused to move until a hidden pouch of letters was retrieved from a suspiciously heavy saddlebag. A reminder that song. At times, even animals had their own agendas. As the sun arcs high, your thoughts drift to the relay itself, how each station depended on the next. A seamless chain where time was measured not in hours, but in the passing of bundles and scrolls. You think of the thousands of couriers like yourself, all moving in rhythm across mountains, rivers, and plains. The wind shifts gently, carrying the scent of wildflowers and distant smoke from village hearths. You feel a quiet pride settle in your chest, knowing that though your journey is solitary, your role keeps the empire's heart beating steadily. The afternoon stretches on with a peaceful cadence, the donkey's steady pace lulling you into a calm awareness of the road beneath and the sky above. And somewhere deep inside, you realize that this slow, deliberate journey is a form of meditation, a bridge between past and present, between place and message. As the day wanes, you ready yourself for the next post house, where new faces and familiar stories await. The rhythm of this ancient calling hums softly in your veins, a gentle reminder that every step forward is part of a larger tale, quietly unfolding beneath the vast Tang sky. As the afternoon wanes, your donkey and you descend a winding mountain pass where the air grows cooler and the scent of pine mingles with crisp, clean earth. The road narrows, flanked by jagged rocks and ancient trees whose branches reach out like gentle arms. You can almost hear the whispered secrets of travelers past, carried on the breeze like an old, forgotten song. The path here is rougher, less traveled, and the donkey's sure-footed steps become a comforting rhythm beneath you. Historians still argue whether these mountain passes were more perilous or more awe-inspiring to the Tang couriers, but you suspect it was a bit of both. You recall a curious fact that mountain post houses often doubled as humble tea houses, where weary travelers could sip a steaming cup of jasmine or chrysanthemum tea, brews thought to sharpen the mind and soothe the body before the next leg of a journey. Some couriers swore by the invigorating qualities of tea, while others simply enjoyed it as a peaceful ritual amid the chaos of their travels. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. In some remote stations, couriers kept tiny bells tied to their donkeys' harnesses. These weren't just for alerting villagers to their approach. They also served as a playful way to encourage the animals to move faster. Like a musical carrot, it must have sounded like a mobile wind chime bouncing down the trail, a gentle soundtrack to the endless journey. The landscape opens into a narrow valley where a crystal-clear stream babbles softly alongside the path. You dismount to lead your donkey across a shallow wooden bridge, the wood worn smooth by countless footsteps. Below, the water ripples over polished stones, glinting like scattered gems in the sunlight. As you pause, you notice a group of children playing near the water, their laughter ringing out like a melody. They wave shyly, and you return the gesture, feeling a tender connection to the ordinary lives that intersect with this extraordinary network of communication. The nearby post house emerges, smoke curling lazily from its chimney, promising warmth and shelter. Inside, a small group of couriers exchange news and tales, voices low and familiar. You settle in, grateful for the company and the brief reprieve from the road. Here, in this modest outpost, you learn of a fascinating practice. Some stations kept small, carved wooden tokens, sort of like early postal stamps, that couriers would collect as proof of passage. These tokens, often etched with symbols or characters, serve as badges of honor and accountability, a tangible record of a journey completed. Historians still debate whether these tokens were purely administrative or if they held a deeper social significance among the courier community. Perhaps they were a quiet form of camaraderie, a shared language of travel and endurance. As evening approaches, you prepare for the next stretch, savoring the warmth of the hearth and the scent of pine drifting through open windows. The rhythm of the donkey's bells and the crackle of firewood blend into a soothing lullaby, one that follows you into dreams of distant mountains and ancient paths. With the night settling gently around you, you rest, knowing the road will call again with the coming dawn. Another chance to be part of the great Tang tapestry. One letter, one step, one breath at a time. The dawn light spills softly through the paper screens as you stretch, muscles still humming from the previous day's ride. Outside, your donkey waits patiently, its breath rising in little clouds in the crisp morning air. Today's journey will take you across a wide plain dotted with wildflowers and ancient burial mounds, silent witnesses to centuries past. The vastness of the landscape is humbling, and you settle into the steady pace of your donkey's gait, feeling the earth gently pulse beneath each step. The Tang postal system thrived on these wide, open spaces, where relay stations stood like sentinels spaced just far enough apart to keep the mail moving swiftly. You reflect on the fact that the postal routes weren't just for government messages. Merchants, scholars, and even poets used them, weaving a tapestry of correspondence that stretched across the empire. Historians still argue whether this openness to civilian use was a deliberate policy or a fortunate side effect of the system's efficiency. A charming detail from this part of the empire is the practice of sending bamboo letters, thin, carefully split strips of bamboo inscribed with ink. These were light, durable, and easy to bundle, perfect for the long journey ahead. Some couriers even carried small, handcrafted wooden boxes designed to protect these delicate messages from rain and mud. As you ride, you pass clusters of roadside inns bustling with travelers. The hum of conversations and clinking teacups fills the air, but you keep your focus, knowing that time is a precious commodity in the relay. Still, the occasional pause to share a bowl of rice porridge and hear news from other couriers is a welcome break from solitude. You smile to yourself, recalling a whimsical legend that some donkeys were believed to have a sixth sense for danger, pausing or balking before an unseen hazard. While likely more superstition than fact, this belief speaks to the deep bond between rider and beast, a silent understanding that guided many a messenger safely home. Later, the flat plain gives way to a gentle river crossing, where a simple wooden ferry transports you and your donkey to the other side. The water laps quietly beneath, and you watch as a heron takes flight, wings wide and graceful. At the next post house, you find a peculiar artifact, a set of miniature flags once used to signal approaching couriers across long distances. These flags, painted with bright colors and bold symbols, created an early form of visual communication, like a rural semaphore. It's a reminder of the ingenuity embedded in the system, blending tradition and innovation. You take a moment to enjoy the fading light as the sun dips low, painting the sky in pastel hues. The day's journey, like the mail you carry, feels part of a larger, timeless rhythm, a gentle pulse connecting countless lives across space and time. Your donkey flicks its ears and nudges your side, a quiet companion on this endless road. You settle in for the evening, wrapped in the soft embrace of twilight, ready to dream of mountains, rivers, and the steady beat of hooves on ancient paths. The morning light filters softly through bamboo groves as you set off, the air fragrant with the scent of wet leaves and blooming lotus flowers. Today's route will take you near a bustling market town where merchants from distant lands trade silk, spices, and exotic goods, all carried here by the very postal network you serve. The sound of your donkey's hooves on packed earth blends with the distant hum of market chatter, hawkers calling out their wares. The Tang postal system wasn't just about delivering letters. It was a vital artery for commerce and culture. You marvel at the thought that your journey helps weave together not only messages, but the very fabric of empire-wide connection. Historians still argue whether the post routes helped spread ideas faster than armies, or whether they mostly kept officials in touch with one another. Either way, you can't deny the magic of being part of this quiet web, where every letter might carry news of distant lands or a poem from a forgotten lover. Near the town, you glimpse a curious sight. A small troupe of street performers, juggling and playing bamboo flutes, their bright costumes fluttering in the breeze. Some say these performers traveled alongside couriers, offering entertainment during long waits or breaks. Whether fact or fanciful tale, it's a reminder of the lively human stories behind the ancient postal lines. You recall a lesser-known practice. Some stations maintained small herb gardens growing medicinal plants like ginseng and chrysanthemum. These were used to treat minor ailments for couriers and travelers. A gentle reminder of the empire's embrace of natural remedies long before modern medicine. As you pass through the market town, you see a craftsman carving intricate seals, used to authenticate official documents and prevent forgery. These seals were prized possessions, sometimes passed down through generations. The postal workers bore the responsibility of delivering letters sealed with these symbols of trust, a silent testament to their honor and duty. A gentle breeze carries the aroma of freshly baked, steamed buns, and you pause to savor one, a small comfort on a long road. The bun's warmth and subtle sweetness are soothing, a quiet luxury after miles of riding. Beyond the town, the path narrows once again, flanked by rice paddies shimmering in the afternoon sun. Water buffalo wallow in muddy pools, their slow movements a counterpoint to your steady progress. As evening falls, the sky blazes with crimson and gold. You reach a small post house perched beside a quiet lake, its surface like glass, reflecting the changing light. Inside, a fire crackles softly, and the soft murmur of other couriers sharing stories washes over you like a lullaby. You settle down, the rhythm of your donkey's breath syncing with your own as night deepens. The journey continues tomorrow, each step a part of this grand, unfolding story, one of donkeys, letters, mountains, and the soft, steady pulse of human connection. The morning mist curls gently over the riverbank as you mount your donkey, the cool air wrapping softly around you. Today's path will carry you through a wooded valley, where ancient trees whisper secrets and the ground is carpeted with fallen leaves. The Tang postal network depended on these forested routes as much as the open plains, each terrain presenting its own challenges and charms. The soft rustle of leaves accompanies your steady pace, and you marvel at how the couriers adapted to the rhythms of nature. Stations were often nestled in natural clearings, designed to blend into the landscape and offer shelter without disturbing the forest's delicate balance. You recall an interesting fact. Some stations employed specially trained birds, homing pigeons, to carry urgent messages over particularly difficult stretches. While historians still argue how widespread this practice was, it's a fascinating glimpse into the innovative ways the Tang Dynasty sought to keep information flowing. As you pass beneath towering pines, you notice small carved wooden charms hanging from branches, offerings left by travelers wishing for safe passage. These charms, often inscribed with blessings or poems, gave the route a spiritual dimension, weaving together faith and duty. Your donkey pauses at a shallow stream, drinking gently, and you take a moment to appreciate the cool, clear water slipping over smooth stones. Nearby, a cluster of wild orchids bloom quietly, an unexpected splash of delicate color in the shadowed woods. At one station, you spot an old scroll displayed in a simple wooden case. It details the courier's code, a set of guidelines emphasizing loyalty, speed, and respect for the beasts of burden. The code was strict but fair, a reminder that the network was as much about honor as efficiency. Legends tell of couriers who, despite fierce storms or sudden landslides, delivered their messages on time, though some say those tales grew taller with each retelling. Still, the idea of relentless dedication through hardship is soothing in its own way, a testament to human resilience wrapped in calm perseverance. As twilight seeps into the forest, you reach a small clearing where lanterns flicker softly, guiding you toward a humble inn. The scent of pine and earth mingles with the warmth of a wood fire, promising rest and renewal before tomorrow's ride. Your donkey nudges you gently, ready for a quiet evening. You sink into the steady rhythm of the night, surrounded by the forest's gentle embrace and the ever-present hum of the Empire's pulse. Dawn breaks softly over rolling hills as you begin your day's ride, the air tinged with the fresh scent of dew-soaked grass and blooming chrysanthemums. Today, your path crosses ancient farmlands, where the rhythm of planting and harvest has marked the seasons for centuries. You pass fields divided by narrow irrigation ditches, their waters glinting like silver ribbons in the sunlight. The Tang postal system was closely linked to agricultural communities. Letters often contained news of harvest yields or official edicts about land use. Without this network, the Empire's heartland might have fallen silent. In these quiet fields, you spot a peculiar sight: a scarecrow dressed in worn silk robes, its face painted with serene expressions. Some stations employed such figures to guard crops, but also as symbolic guardians to watch over couriers passing through. Whether practical or poetic, it adds a touch of whimsy to your journey. Historians still debate how much the Tang postal system influenced rural daily life, but few deny that it connected even the most remote villages to the Empire's beating core. You pause to watch a family of farmers harvesting rice, their coordinated movements almost choreographed. Nearby, you notice a curious tool, a simple wooden yoke designed to carry baskets balanced on the shoulders. Some couriers carried similar tools to ease their loads, showing how everyday ingenuity supported even the longest journeys. Your donkey nuzzles a nearby patch of clover as you savor a bite of steamed chestnut, its gentle sweetness a comforting reminder of nature's quiet generosity. The chestnut, a staple in these regions, was often packed as travel food, energy for long rides on dusty trails. At the next station, you find a small library of bamboo scrolls containing poems, farming advice, and postal regulations. The presence of such texts reveals the multi-layered nature of the postal network, a blend of practical communication and cultural exchange. You overhear a courier sharing a soft-spoken joke about the local magistrate's fondness for sweet tea, a reminder that even officials had their simple pleasures. Humor, it seems, was as essential a companion as the donkey on these long roads. As the sun dips low, casting amber light over ripening fields, you settle in for the night at a modest farmhouse. The scent of drying herbs mingles with the cool evening breeze, lulling you into a peaceful, contented rest. The sun peaks lazily over distant mountains as you prepare to leave the farmhouse, the morning air still cool and fragrant with the scent of pine and earth. Today's route takes you through a sprawling network of rivers and canals, vital waterways that intertwine with the Tang postal system like veins carrying life through the empire. Your donkey picks its way carefully along the narrow, muddy path beside the canal, water shimmering like liquid glass to your side. You can almost hear the gentle slap of wooden boats ferrying goods and people, the faint creak of oars dipping rhythmically into the water. The waterways were essential shortcuts for postal couriers, who sometimes transferred their letters and parcels onto small boats to speed delivery. Some historians argue the waterways were even more critical than roads for communication during the Tang Dynasty, especially in the southern provinces with their maze of rivers. Along the bank, you spot a lone fisherman casting a net, his silhouette calm and steady against the rising sun. Nearby, clusters of lotus flowers float serenely, their pale pink petals brushing the water surface, a peaceful contrast to the hard work of delivery. A quirky detail you remember. Some stations by the rivers kept trained otters to assist fishermen, and occasionally these clever creatures were used to carry small messages across streams. While evidence is scarce, the idea of otters as postal helpers adds a charming layer to the story. You notice how the posts near the canals had special docks and warehouses to store goods and letters waiting for boats. A bustling coordination point where river and land routes met. The careful choreography ensured messages and parcels moved swiftly despite the twists and turns of the waterways. Passing a rustic tea house overlooking the water, you pause for a moment to enjoy a warm cup brewed from freshly picked jasmine blossoms. The fragrant steam curls gently upward, mingling with the morning mist, creating a soothing ambience that makes you want to linger. As afternoon fades into evening, the path grows quiet, save for the gentle murmur of the river and the distant calls of night birds. You reach a small riverside in where lanterns begin to glow softly, inviting you to rest after a day navigating nature's waterways. You settle in, the gentle rocking of the river almost lulling you to sleep, as the ancient system you're part of continues, humming quietly beneath the surface of history. The soft glow of dawn slips through bamboo slats as you rise. The cool morning air, scented faintly with incense and fresh tea leaves. Today, your journey takes you along one of the Tang Dynasty's most remarkable feats. The mountain passes that threaded the empire's highlands, places both beautiful and treacherous. You steady yourself as your donkey carefully picks its way over rocky paths, the sound of hooves tapping against stone echoing softly in the crisp air. The scenery shifts dramatically here. Steep cliffs plunge into misty valleys, and towering pines sway gently overhead, their needles whispering ancient secrets. The Tang postal system's mountain routes were essential for connecting distant border regions with the imperial court. Couriers traversed these rugged paths with remarkable endurance, braving sudden storms and fog that could swallow a traveler whole. Historians still argue whether couriers carried special mountain herbs to fend off altitude sickness, a practice that would blend medicine and myth in one. As you pause at a narrow ledge, you notice a small shrine carved into the rock face, adorned with offerings and colorful prayer flags fluttering in the breeze. These markers served as both spiritual beacons and waypoints for couriers, a reminder of the gods watching over those who brave the heights. In one clearing, you find a weathered wooden sign etched with faded characters, detailing emergency shelters scattered along the pass. These refuges were vital, providing shelter and hot broth for couriers caught in sudden mountain storms, a practice that underscores the system's human kindness amid harsh conditions. Your donkey snorts softly, nudging a patch of wild mountain mint, releasing a faint, refreshing aroma that mingles with the pine. This natural fragrance helped travelers stay alert on winding, narrow trails, an ancient form of aromatherapy before bedtime teas were invented. You chuckle softly, imagining a courier nervously clutching mint leaves and humming a song to stay calm. Humor was a small but vital companion in these isolated stretches. Nearby, you spot a rare mountain butterfly, its delicate wings flickering in the sunlight, a tiny jewel amid the vast ruggedness. As evening settles, you find a cozy hut where the glow of a hearth promises warmth and rest. Outside, stars blink slowly, distant and eternal, as you prepare to drift into a well-earned sleep wrapped in the embrace of these timeless mountains. The morning mist clings softly to the edges of an ancient city as you enter the bustling streets, the hum of merchants and townsfolk blending with the occasional clip-clop of horses. The Tang postal system's heartbeat was often strongest in these urban centers, where letters and parcels flowed like the rivers cutting through the city. You navigate narrow alleyways lined with fragrant markets, selling everything from candied hawthorn berries to fragrant sandalwood incense. The smell of sizzling dumplings mingles with the earthy scent of paper and ink from nearby scribe shops, places where official documents and personal letters were penned with careful brushstrokes. Central post offices here functioned as hubs of communication and commerce, with clerks sorting bundles of letters by district. You notice a curious detail. Some couriers wore small bells on their belts, jingling softly to announce their approach and clear a path through crowded streets. Historians still debate whether this was more about safety or a subtle reminder of imperial authority. In a quiet courtyard, you glimpse a poet composing under a flowering plum tree, the delicate rustle of petals falling like whispered secrets. Poetry often traveled alongside official dispatches, a reminder that communication wasn't merely functional but a deeply human art. You watch a pair of couriers exchange a nod and a folded note, a silent ritual underscoring the trust and camaraderie embedded in the postal network. Their donkeys munch quietly nearby, seemingly unbothered by the city's chaos. Nearby, an elderly woman sells hand-painted fans depicting scenes from famous Tang legends, her gentle smile a beacon of warmth. These fans, once carried by couriers to shield themselves from the sun, now serve as tokens of culture and comfort. As dusk settles, lanterns light the streets with a soft, golden glow, and you find a quiet tea house where you sip a cup of chrysanthemum tea, its gentle bitterness soothing the day's weariness. Outside, the city's pulse slows, inviting you to rest within its ancient walls, part of the endless flow of stories and messages carried by the Tang postal system. You wake to a soft drizzle pattering against wooden shutters, the scent of wet earth rising through the open window. Today's leg of your journey takes you across Tang Dynasty's vast plains, sweeping landscapes where the horizon seems endless and the sky spills pale light like a gentle sea. Your donkey trots steadily through fields of swaying millet and distant clusters of poplar trees, the rhythmic sound of hooves blending with the occasional bird call. These open stretches, though less dramatic than mountains or rivers, pose their own challenges for couriers, from sudden storms to the weariness of endless flat roads. Along the route, you pass a cluster of way stations, modest but vital outposts offering fresh horses, food, and rest. These relay stations were key to the Empire's swift communication, a bit like the ancient version of today's highway rest stops. Couriers rarely lingered long here, but the staff's friendly smiles offered a small, human touch to the long journey. A quirky note you recall: some stations employed young musicians to play soothing tunes, helping tired couriers relax before setting off again. While it sounds like a luxury, scholars still argue whether music truly sped up postal deliveries or simply made the wait more pleasant. The vast skies above seemed to stretch endlessly, with clouds drifting lazily as if guiding your path. You imagine how the changing seasons painted these plains, from lush green springs to the golden waves of autumn, each bringing its own rhythm and mood to the journey. Passing a field dotted with wildflowers, you spot a group of children playing near a humble wooden fence, their laughter light and carefree. It's a small reminder of life moving steadily alongside the Empire's grand designs, ordinary moments woven into the fabric of history. As evening descends, you find shelter in a cozy village inn, the warmth of a crackling fire inviting you to rest. Outside, the plains stretch dark and peaceful, a quiet expanse beneath a sky filled with stars, wrapping you gently into the embrace of another tranquil night. The last leg of your journey begins in the tender light of dawn, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of jasmine and dew. You move steadily now, donkeys' hooves tapping softly on the packed earth as the Tang postal system's grand network carries its final parcels toward the imperial capital. Alongside you, the road hums quietly with the distant sounds of awakening villages, a rooster's crow, the low murmur of farmers readying their fields, and the clink of wooden carts laden with goods. These last miles feel almost sacred, the threshold between distant frontiers and the heart of the empire. You pause briefly at a small roadside shrine, its red lacquered pillars glowing faintly in the early light. Couriers often left offerings here, seeking safe passage for themselves and their trusted donkeys, companions who bore the empire's words across vast and varied lands. Historians still argue about the exact rituals performed, but the reverence is unmistakable. Your donkey nuzzles a patch of wild chrysanthemum, its bittersweet fragrance mingling with the crisp morning breeze. These flowers were prized in Tang China, often steeped into calming teas enjoyed by couriers during their brief rests, a subtle reminder that even the busiest messengers found moments of peace. As the imperial city rises in the distance, its rooftops sparkling beneath a slowly brightening sky, you feel the weight of countless journeys converging here. The letters and parcels carried across deserts, mountains, and plains now gather in this great nexus of communication, ready to weave the empire's stories together. You smile softly, imagining the countless unseen hands, both human and animal, who made this intricate dance possible. The Tang postal system was more than a means of delivery. It was a lifeline, a bridge between people, places, and moments in time. As you prepare to rest, the world around you softens into the gentle hush of evening shadows, the echoes of hooves fading into the twilight. The journey may end here, but the stories, like whispers on the wind, continue on. The sky darkens gently now, stars twinkling faintly as the world quiets. Feel the slow pulse of the empire's vast lands settling into peaceful stillness around you. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of night insects, and the faint scent of chrysanthemum tea linger in the air, wrapping you in a calm embrace. Rest easy, knowing that countless couriers once carried their hopes, stories, and secrets across vast distances, each journey a thread in the tapestry of history. Let your mind drift with the rhythm of steady hooves on old roads, the whisper of mountain pines, and the warmth of lantern-lit inns. Slow your breath, soften your thoughts, and sink deeper into this timeless night. Tomorrow brings new stories, but for now, let the gentle past cradle you into rest. Sweet dreams.